All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's call of the Crypto Mondays Collective. We've got a great guest with us today, Aliya Das Gupta, who's Senior VP of Business Development with Sygnum. I think one of the most dynamic banks, serving the crypto community in the world. And this is her second visit to the collective. So, Aliya, thanks for joining us again. And just real quick, before we turn the floor over, talked a little about the collective business. First, very exciting. Our new website went live yesterday, so I encourage you to go over to cryptomondays.io and check it out. If you can just see up here, it's members. We have DIA, which has been, the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance. The organization we started is growing rapidly. I'll make mention of that in a few minutes. Monday, the AI agent you're making progress on. So go check out the new site. Dia, we had our second general meeting earlier this week. Our logo board, we're now up to 60 members, up from 30 when we had our first meeting. So things are going it's growing rapidly. Most of the work there is being done in subgroups. We're up to 5 subgroups that are meeting regularly. Agentic commerce is meeting weekly. They've already had 3 meetings. And as I mentioned, Monday, which is our community management AI agent, is going to be open source. We're making progress on. We'll keep everybody up to date on that. I look forward to getting it in everybody's hands shortly. And then we've got a bunch of new Crypto Monday chapters. Baltimore started a couple weeks ago. Dublin started a couple weeks ago. That was actually started by Techstars. They have a Web3 AI accelerator in Dublin, and they partnered with somebody in Belfast. So every other week they're going to have it in Dublin and then Belfast and back and forth. Porto is starting up. I'm going to be there. Next week for me is Crypto Monday Tel Aviv. And then the week after is Crypto Mondays Porto. So that'll be my 37th Crypto Monday chapter. I went to the opening of Charleston about 5 weeks ago. And then I didn't see Charles on the call, but Charles Fruin, an active member of the collective, is starting up Sao Paulo. So excited about that in a couple weeks. And then Crypto Monday Austin, which was a great chapter. And then it went dark for about a year. I got started back up again at South Pi, and we had a good turnout. And so that's up and going again. So good progress is being made there. And in addition to her work at Sygnum, Leah is also one of the co-organizers of Crypto Monday Zurich, which is an awesome chapter. I've been there 3 times, and just saw in the latest post from the meeting you had last week, it sounded like you had the biggest crowd yet. Elliot?
Yeah, we had a really good event a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I guess it was on DPIN.
Yeah.
So cool. So I look forward to visiting again, if not before, maybe next year before Davos. And with that, I'll turn it over to Aliya. She'll give us an update on what's up at Sygnum.
Cool. Yeah, no, happy to do that. Thanks again for the opportunity. Cool. If you're in Zurich, definitely hit me up. We can have coffee or something. Um, Maybe I'll just pull up my screen just because it's nicer to look at something while someone's presenting. Find it more
Awesome.
interesting. Give me a sec. Okay. Does that work? Do you see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, we now see it.
Perfect. Cool. So maybe for at least the ones who have their camera on, are you guys familiar with Sygnum? You could just maybe like put your hand up if yes or don't if not. Okay, so mostly shaking heads. So I'll maybe start at the beginning and give you like the quick background story as well. Sygnum was actually set up back in 2016-17. Our co-founders realized that there was something quite big happening in the world of crypto, but that there was this big gap between what was happening in the traditional world and what was happening in crypto. And they saw that there was a lot of wealth that was being created in crypto, but that didn't have a channel back into traditional finance. And similarly, people from the traditional finance world who wanted to engage with crypto didn't have an ability to do so through a sort of regulated doorway. And so that was the sort of market opportunity they identified even back then in 2016. They then set up the company in 2017, and then they applied for a banking license from FINMA here in Switzerland. And we finally received that in 2019. So it took a while, and it was definitely quite an educational journey to work with our regulators over here to really help them understand how you can regulate digital assets even with existing regulation. You don't actually have to come up with something quite new. There is an ability to retrofit quite a lot of it. And so we got our license back in 2021. But I will also caveat that with FINMA is an incredibly innovation, tech forward sort of regulator. And so I think it was already back in 2018 where they had their first guidelines on how to run a compliant ICO. And then in 2021, they came up with the DLT law. So it actually was ratified in Parliament and so on. So it really codified how DLT companies can function in Switzerland and how they can be governed and what they need to look out for and all of these things. So really ahead of the curve in many ways, though, of course, now you see actually a lot of different jurisdictions catching up. But at the time, it was we were really market leading, and Sygnum has its roots both in Switzerland and in Singapore. So that's what you see in this slide over here, actually. The idea was to see ourselves as connecting the old world and the new. So the old world of traditional finance and the new world of crypto. And then over here, I think looks quite cool with the old town of Zurich and Singapore that looks really futuristic. And in terms of who we are, right, or what our core sort of offering is, at the core, of course, we're a bank, the same as UBS or so. But so you have your IBAN account, SWIFT and SEPA payments, asset management solutions, kind of the standard offerings. But on top of that, we're a crypto custodian. So you're able to hold, I think, over 65 different digital assets with Sygnum in your bank account. And you can actually stake a lot of those assets as well. And as a custodian, I think it's also really important to note that because of the way the Swiss DLT law is set up, none of the assets that Sygnum holds are actually on Sygnum's balance sheet. They're all held off balance sheet, which means that in the event of a bank run or in the event of a liquidation or bankruptcy or anything like this, all of your crypto assets are safe. They're off balance sheet and they would never be part of any of these types of proceedings. And for a lot of our clients, that's a really big and powerful differentiator from, say, for example, I mean, we all know what happened with FTX. And so in that moment, I think also it really strengthened our value proposition to the market to say that, hey, having someone that's regulation first and very designed to kind of hold your assets and keep them safe and not really be a black box where everything goes in and you can't see anything after that became even more important. And then, of course, alongside our custodian services, we're also a broker, which means that for most of our clients, it's usually used to move in and out of crypto. So as you can imagine, a lot of founders of different crypto projects are our clients. And they can then say take out a line of credit against their Bitcoin holdings, take that out in USD or Euro or whatever fiat currency they need to pay a down payment on a mortgage or, you know, buy an apartment, buy a yacht, whatever they need to do. And so, and of course, now in addition to all of these things, we've also set up traditional securities trading, because in the last couple of years, that's obviously been a really interesting client for our interesting product for our crypto clients who don't maybe have access to these types of assets. This is also like pre-BIDL and so on. And so for a lot of these clients of ours, they really enjoy having this diversity of asset exposure. So they can also be quite liquid while having access to money market funds or treasury bills from the US or whatever, but also maybe holding their positions in crypto and Bitcoin, and then being able to engage with all of these within a single interface. Today, we have over 5 billion in assets under custody with over 2,000 clients around the world. We serve most countries, but sadly not the US yet. And also, of course, no other OFAC listed countries, and also not So, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, any of these places, but still we're spread quite far around the world. Today we have over 270 employees, and also what's quite interesting is that Sygnum's entire tech stack is white labeled and used by over 20 banks here in Switzerland and also in Europe. So this means that for a lot of, especially smaller banks, they don't want to build up all of the know-how and compliance and all of the sort of requirements that you have as a bank to be able to offer crypto to your clients. But obviously, because Sygnum is licensed and a well-known player in the space, they can just take all of our tech stack, white label it, and then within 60 days be live to offer all of these crypto offerings to their clients as well. And what's cool is, I think last year now already, or maybe it's almost 2 years ago, we started working with PostFinance. PostFinance is actually the government bank here in Switzerland. It's has over 3 million clients, which is about 30% of Switzerland's population. So it's actually one of the biggest banks here in Switzerland, one of the large banks at least. And now all of those 3 million people have access to crypto assets, and that's through Sygnum. And also very excitingly, a couple of months ago, we opened up staking. So now you can buy your crypto through PostFinance and then also stake it directly through essentially our backend interface. If you guys have any questions or any comments or anything like this, feel free to jump in, because otherwise it's really quite a big monologue.
Aliya,
But
can
otherwise,
you go more into the staking? I know it's a big topic today at the White House, how to stake
yeah.
crypto assets legally.
It'd be great.
Yeah, so I think it also comes up a bit later in the presentation, but I can talk about it now as well. In terms of staking, we work with several counterparties as well as our providers, because we wanted to have a decentralized approach. So we have our own setup for a couple of assets, but for the larger ones, especially like Ethereum and so on, we work with several providers on the back end to make sure that there isn't any single counterparty risk in this setup. Yeah, in terms of assets that we offer, I think we have 6 assets. So I know it's Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, ICP, Tesos. Yeah, I think those are the assets that we currently offer, but we're always expanding our offering. And we also do this basically based on client demand. So a client can come to us and say, hey, I'm looking to stake this specific asset. And when they do, we can open it up for them, if the business case is justified. Yeah, so I mean, also talking a little bit more about Sygnum, we kind of started with this regulation first approach. We never really kind of started, let's say, just trading digital assets for clients and then waited for our banking license. So in this way, we were quite different from a lot of the other players in Switzerland. We actually waited to be fully licensed before we even executed our first trade. And I mentioned Singapore before, but also we're present in Abu Dhabi and Liechtenstein and Luxembourg. So we've got quite a global footprint now, or at least one part of the world. We don't serve retail clients, so all of our clients are institutional or professional or qualified investors. And what's also I'm quite proud of is if you look at CoinGecko and you look at the top 100 projects listed there, over 70% of them are actually clients of Sygnum already. So you can really see that we are kind of the banker to the industry. In fairness, till now, perhaps you would say that we didn't have a ton of competition, but also we like to believe that our service is good, but also very crypto native. And for a lot of crypto founders and crypto native individuals, I think it's a really refreshing change to move over to a bank that really understands how the industry works and isn't going to say, what do you mean you have 20 million now when you had only 2 million back in 2018? How did that happen? And things like this, like really understanding on-chain analytics, being able to understand how a token sale works, how your wealth might have been built up. All of these things are something that, of course, our compliance team is very familiar with. I said before, we have this crypto native offering, and then also we have this API first platform. So all the other banks that we work with can simply use our APIs. And now I believe it's also being developed for trading houses and funds, larger funds and so on, so they can plug us in directly into their interfaces as well. So we're licensed across these 5 jurisdictions that I mentioned before. I won't go too much into that unless someone has a specific question, but the big one is, are we MiCAR prepared and compliant? And the answer is yes, because we work with Liechtenstein. And through that, we're able to grandfather into the EU and service clients in that area. I talked a little bit about most of our offerings before, but what I will also talk about here is what the bullet that I didn't address before is actually tokenization. So already back in 2019, Sygnum really believed in this idea of future finance, and that means thinking about real-world asset tokenization. And because it was quite new then, and there weren't so many people doing it, we actually started quite small. We tokenized some bottles of wine. Then we worked with art. So we tokenized a Picasso painting in 2021, which is really exciting and one of those real use cases of how you can diversify your portfolio without necessarily having the capital to go out and buy a big, rare piece of art. And that actually got sold 8 months or 9 months after the initial launch. And so everybody who had invested in the Picasso made a 29% return or something like that, which was very exciting just to have like this story of how diversification of your asset base is maybe something that could be interesting on a more mass level rather than just obviously at the top 1% or 0.5% of the wealth in the world. And what we also do over here, you can see, is RegTech and crypto compliance. So we actually work with all these banks that we provide the backend for, but for some other players, sometimes they maybe have their own custody solution or something like this. And in this scenario, we also offer our crypto tech stack of AML. So it's called Camel or crypto AML. And banks can actually just buy this, buy a license to this, which they use to then check or verify all the funds that are coming in on chain into the bank accounts, into their own ecosystem. So this is one of those off-the-shelf products that has also been quite interesting for some of the more regulated players in the industry. I mentioned this before, but I'll double down on it because it's really important. But holding all of your crypto assets off balance sheet is actually one of those things that isn't a given depending on who your counterparty is. And so for us, with our banking license, holding crypto assets in this off-balance sheet treatment is something that is really quite a big differentiator in the industry and enables a lot of our clients to sort of rest easy, knowing that their assets are never going to be a part of any sort of bankruptcy or liquidity crunch proceedings at Sygnum. Our custody platform, we like to think of it as a multi-custody setup where we have both an HSM setup as well as an MPC setup. All of these assets are actually held on chain, so you can always view your assets. So we have a vault versus a trading wallet setup where on Vault, you can actually see your own assets in your wallet on chain and feel really comfortable seeing that, they're just sitting there, nothing's happening to them. If you are a person that likes to trade a lot and are very active in the market, then it makes sense to perhaps use the trading wallet setup because over here you really have a lot more flexibility in terms of speed of transactions, and then also having some of the gas fees abstracted away. And so it's a bit more of a flexible setup that enables clients to engage with the custody setup as they are comfortable. Now I'm just talking a bit more in specific. I'll maybe skip over this to talk about what I'm really interested in or what's exciting and new on our side. If you have specific questions about our trading setup or credit and lending, I can also talk about that.
Could you go back to your setup side, right? So for the Picasso painting, for example, when you tokenize that, like where would that be in this diagram?
So tokenization is sort of a separate business unit within the bank as well.
Okay.
And what we have is actually an issuance platform called Designate, and then Synex, which is the secondary trading venue for any of these tokenized assets. when the Picasso, for example, was issued, it was issued by Designate. All the clients of the bank that purchased it would see it in their account overview, that they have a position in these, or they own these tokens. And then they also had access to the secondary marketplace with Sinex, where they were able to sell or exit their positions if they needed to do so. We have our asset management solutions, and here, this is actually something that's quite new, and you may have seen a press release we recently did around this as well. So in light of especially what happened with Bybit a couple of weeks ago, and of course with FTX, the infamous downfall, for a lot of clients of ours who are, let's say, large trading houses or prop trading shops, hedge funds, and so on, executing all of these trades on a platform, say like a Binance or a Deribit, means that they also have to hold quite a significant amount of collateral in those exchanges while they're executing these trades. And that's always kind of a risk for them because you don't know what the story of the exchange is all the time. And so in this setup, what we've actually developed is an off-exchange custody solution. So Sygnum then has a setup with Deribit and also now with Binance, where your collateral assets are held off balance sheet in a tri-party setup between the exchange, Sygnum, and the client itself. And you're able to then have a line of, depending on the exchange, but say in the case of Binance, it's a virtual margin that you can then use to trade as you need, as quickly as you need on Binance. And then with Deribit as well, you're able to then have this line of, it's not even a line of credit, it's more this virtual margining, which enables you to then execute trades and play in the market as much as you need, but having these assets held off exchange in Sygnum custody. And so this is, of course, something that's now becoming more and more interesting as the market starts to develop, because in the traditional finance world, typically a custodian is different from like where trading is happening. These two are different venues. In crypto, these have been kind of usually been seen as a single entity, and this is something that now we're kind of trying to emulate and make sure that there is some level of segregation between these two offerings. And what's also really important about this is that it's not just that your assets are sitting as collateral kind of as deadweight. By holding them, let's say, in US Treasuries, they're actually earning a yield, of course. And this yield then also pays for the service. And then in addition to that adds to, of course, your complete trading revenue that you would generate from the trades that you're running. So with Binance, it's primarily in T-bills. And with Deribit, we also have crypto collateral enabled. So that, yeah, especially for our crypto native clients, that's an even nicer position or nicer way to engage with the market, because then you're also holding your long position and then trading the rest of your portfolio. And alongside Protect, we actually launched it in a duo with Connect. Connect is an institutional solution for instant settlement within the bank. So if you have your broker or your trader or any of your clients, or even just different entities of yours that are trading at the same time, you can make instant transactions between them, have instant settlement, and then carry on being able to trade. And this, of course, is something that I think was actually available in the US on a large scale prior to Signature, Silvergate, and so on shutting down. And then there was a little bit of this gap in the market. And so this is the area where sort of Sygnum stepped in and said, yes, this is something that we can actually support for our clients. So with Sygnum Connect, some of our partners that I can talk about are Fireblocks, Hidden Road, B2C2, Asia Next, and so on. So I've been talking for a very long time, and I hope I haven't bored you. But maybe I'll actually stop there, and I'm very happy to answer any questions or discuss any comments that you guys might have.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you very much. And generally, we save the questions till the end, because what we found when we first started doing this, we had questions during. Quite often, the person would only get through a third of their slides.
Fair enough. Actually, let me, on that note, actually try one more slide, because I think this product is also going to have a new offering quite soon. Sygnum Rise was developed as a fundraising support tool for basically projects that were going through big fundraisers. Because of the kind of lack of clarity on the regulation even around the world, what Sygnum then decided to offer was a full KYC AML service for all the investors in any specific project. And that means you have this kind of bank grade support for making for compliance of the fundraising process, and having the speed of having all of these assets deposited directly into your bank account. So normally when you're going through a fundraise, there's one component somewhere that is actually doing the KYC and AML, and often the funds are going into a separate kind of escrow service, and then there's a 90-day period while you're waiting for this consolidation to happen, and only then do you actually have access to your own funds. With Sygnum, if we bundled all of these things into one provider, so that when you go through this fundraising process, you actually raise these funds and deposit them directly into your Sygnum bank account. And that means they're ready to deploy literally the next day, which adds a lot of speed and a lot of streamlining to the process. Because if you talk to founders who've gone through a fundraising, they will tell you how brutal and painful the process can be. And so this is one of the things that I work on in Sygnum as well, is where we really analyze the market and see where we can support, what are problem points that maybe we can help with. And this is one of the problem areas that we realized we actually had the ability to solve. So we call this product Sygnum Rise, and it's a little bit of a basket of services where, of course, you get this AML and KYC services, but you also get access to this ecosystem governance and treasury management solutions from our bank. And then all the community benefits of working with Sygnum. So obviously working with the fully regulated bank is always a generally green flag to the market. But then also there's the possibility to have matchmaking with some VCs, being featured on Sygnum socials, engaging with our client networks, and so on. And right now we're in the process of doing a revamp of this, where we actually are creating a single dashboard for the entire fundraising process. So think of it as a little bit like Carta, but for Web3, where as soon as as a project you're choosing to fundraise, the project can send out all of the DocuSigns and SAFTs. So all of that is within the same dashboard. Once the DocuSign is signed or the SAFT is signed, the investor gets access to the KYC process. And then once that's complete, they can transfer the funds directly into the Sygnum bank account. And for the project founder, they have a single view of how the entire process is rolling forward. So this is currently in progress. We hope to go live in the next month or so. And as a phase 2 of this, it's also to integrate a vesting and distribution contract. So that means that once the investors have invested and the project is, working on their product, when it comes to the time for the actual token generating event, they can also do this distribution through the same platform. So yes, that's now where I will stop.
Okay.
Is this a competitor to Legion, or is it complementary?
No, it's similar to Legion, yeah.
Okay, terrific. So if anybody has questions, raise your hand. I'll start with a couple. And the first is, you've been doing this for a while now. Can you talk about how the market's evolved?
On our side at Sygnum, it's
Yes.
so, or at least in Europe or Switzerland, I can maybe talk about, right? So the general bullish sentiment, I think, out of the US is something that is a big positive driver to all the fundamentals for the industry. I think everyone's net seeing the broader interest and attraction in crypto assets, which is, of course, a great play for institutionalization, which is why, which is also kind of the part of the market that we serve. As institutional players get more interested, we can see it also in the number of RFPs that are being released into the market. So people are really asking for more support on crypto services. This is something that we also obviously are engaging with. And I think, particularly with the political climate right now in the US, there's a little bit of a wait and watch, because while Donald Trump is bullish on crypto, it's still not very clear what the actual legislation outcome, what the legislative outcome of this will be. And so that's still, I think, on the US side, it's a little bit more wait and watch, because Europe, I think, in general tends to be a little bit more risk averse towards these things. But our risk averseness and wait and watchness has paid off in terms of waiting for the implementation of MiCAR, which we're seeing right now. And the implementation of MiCAR also means that now around, say, for example, in Germany, it's hard to keep up with the number of banks that have that are requesting support for like custody services, for example. So
That's interesting.
yeah, those are the signs that you're like, okay, so the market is coming, the market is there. Institutions are aware that they can no longer delay this process. So the ones that have not come yet, which is, let's say, a large part of the market still, they are all now starting to move, which is really relieving to see. I think we've been talking about the institutions coming for a long time, and in Europe especially, I mean, in America, you've always had, at least the ETFs. That was a big bullish thing that happened last year, and Larry Fink and Jamie Dimons with all their like public statements, things like this, that the institutions were still listening. On the European side, I think it's been a lot more like, yeah, we're waiting for MiCAR, and we will see what happens when MiCAR comes. If people still care about Bitcoin, then we will talk about it. But as it turns out, MiCAR is here. People are still talking about it, so it's good.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yes.
So, I know obviously you guys are, located in Switzerland and Singapore. But what other countries, are you seeing? And you had something about the UAE, and I assume that's an interesting country. What are maybe like 3 or 4 of the other kind of most interesting locales?
Yeah, I actually forgot to mention before was Hong Kong. So we're also
Yes.
just about, I don't know if you've acquired the license yet, or it's just about to come, but we're very close in that regard as well. So Hong Kong is definitely a very fertile ground for us, I think. And then because we just got our Liechtenstein license and our ability to now start working in Europe, that's also where a lot of our attention and focus is.
Interesting.
I mean, in addition to the UAE and Luxembourg and Liechtenstein and Singapore. So
Very cool. Okay, Praveen, you got another question?
Yeah, I think you asked it, but I was going to ask about Cayman Islands and Mauritius. Like, so from the regulatory point of view, I guess from a Swiss regulatory aspect, is there a reason why you can't set up an entity in Cayman for U.S. institutions or in Mauritius for Indian institutions? Is that something on your end, on the Swiss end, they won't allow you to do?
so no, we work with a lot of clients from the Cayman Islands, from BVI, Isle of Man, all of these sorts of places, Panama,
Oh, I see. I was just
Mauritius.
looking at the map. I guess it's such small islands you can't tell on the pitch, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, we have clients from all over these places. With regard to US exposure, I think this is a conversation we're always having in the bank because, of course, like the tides are changing a little bit as well now. But so 100% US owned company, but that is operated out of, let's say, Cayman or BVI. That's, I think, a conversation that we could have with compliance. I'm not saying it's easy or something that we can definitely move forward on, but it's, these are always questions that come up and that we constantly have to contend with.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, Robin, you're up.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Aliya.
Hi.
Thank you for your lovely talk. But my first question is, how did you get through that and the other banks went under, and how did you guys make it? So that's my first one. And my second question is about the African market. Do you deal with the African market, or what role could you play? We have quite a few clients who move money from Mozambique, South Africa, Nigeria, Naira, ZAR, Medical. So they would take it in USDT, or some of them, it'd be oil companies, multinationals, airlines, and telcos. Some of them are happy to take in crypto, but for example, the airline industry, nobody wants to know that it's crypto that we're using to move it out of the country. So what role would you play in terms of that transaction?
Yeah. So pleasure to meet you as well, Robin, and thanks for your question. So in terms of how we made it, I think we were just a little bit early to the game and a little bit lucky with our regulators. Like, we were in a jurisdiction that was willing to engage with innovation and really willing to learn, because typically I think in many countries you see I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear the background noise. My kid is crying outside.
Oh, it's fine.
His dad's with him. That's okay. Yes, so there's a lot of countries that see something new and they immediately shut it down. But in Switzerland, typically there's a kind of attitude towards saying, interesting, there is something new. Is it of value? Let us assess it. And then there's a bit more willingness to then engage with it and see how it can also benefit the local economy. And so you can see, I mean, back in 2019, I think, the canton of Zug was already accepting tax payments in crypto. And like in Lugano, so the south of Switzerland, they have their own coin that was created to stimulate the local economy and is actually available in for use in, I think, 300 different stores in the city, and things like initiatives like this that really show that the regulators and the government are invested in growing the technology as well. So I think that's a little bit of the story. Then of course I will say our leadership's been very focused on growth and also early profitability and making sure that we kind of stay focused, because I think one of the problems with crypto as well is that everything's exciting, everything's an opportunity, and really keeping your eyes on the prize and staying on like a specific offering and making sure that it's grows to be really valuable and the biggest offering to the market is something that I maybe questioned when I first joined. I was like, why are we doing only one thing? The market's so exciting. But now I sort of understand why they chose that route. Yeah, it's hard to stay focused here. I can attest to that for sure.
Cool.
And to your second question about engagement with Africa. So for a lot of our clients, payments in USDT, USDC, USDT, etc. is, bread and butter, like it's our standard offering. For more high risk jurisdictions, like most of the countries I think in that you mentioned before, yeah, they just classified as such, right? Yeah. And for working with high risk jurisdictions, we typically have a much more heavy set of risk parameters that we need to verify and vet against. But of course, we do have clients from these areas as well. So it just depends, I think, a little bit on the counterparty, on the size of the business case, where it becomes something that's the bank has to invest quite a lot of time and energy into engaging with these types of clients. And so, yeah, so for us, because it's we don't have a ton of competitors in the market just yet, we're still able to assess each opportunity a little bit based on the business case and then explore collaborations and so on. But I mean, in theory, yes, of course, if there are clients in South Africa that need to work in USDT and, they're larger players, like you said, telecom providers and so on, of course, yes, we would be able to work with them.
Well, they would be our clients, but then, so what role would you play? Would we have a bank account with you, and then our exchange would trade they'd ingest rands, and then they would trade it through whatever currency they are, and then we would deposit it into your account and you'd into our account with you. Is that correct? Is that the process?
So we don't do omnibus accounts for exchanges. That's like a big request that we often get from large players in the market, that they want to have, the exchange account that holds client funds of, all their clients and so on. And this is something that's a little bit difficult for Sygnum because, of course, for banks, it's okay. But for exchanges, the kind of the obligations that you have in terms of KYC are just different from the ones that we have. And that means that we would have to do a double check to understand what sorts of clients you're working with and so on. And so on a sort of case-by-case basis, if there was only institutional clients and that there was some way to kind of do a separation of the funds to say this is, client funds and this is exchange funds and so on and so on. Again, like I said, we can always explore different possibilities, but this is a little bit the guidelines of how we operate, where we don't really do omnibus accounts for exchanges because of this this risk thing that I mentioned.
Okay, we'll take it offline, and if I can,
sure, yeah, happy to take it offline.
We probably bore the people here with our KYCs, whatever.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Hey, Charles, you are here. You got the next question. When is Crypto Monday Sao Paulo starting?
It's going to be on the 28th of April, Lou.
Awesome.
And we've got a video screen there, so you know if there's a chance to beam you in,
Yes.
we'd love to do it. But and I had a
Yeah.
great call with Josh. He's quite a character.
Yes. But yeah, he's been an awesome ambassador for Crypto Mondays. So your question for Aliya?
Good. My question, Aliya, great. I love the presentation. There's a lot of stuff to absorb there. I don't know if you allow this, but it would be great if you could make the presentation available. So, I mean, it was too much for me to understand all in.
Sure, of course.
Also, my phone kept ringing, throughout the presentation. If you could, it would be great.
Of course, yeah, no problem.
Okay, and well done. It looks amazing what you're doing. Looks like exactly the niche in the market that needed filling.
Yeah, we like to think that, yes.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Aliya, I'll take a couple more first. Record numbers of Crypto Monday Zurich. Anything in particular going on in the ecosystem that you think is driving that, or it's just you guys have been doing a really good job for years now?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Crypto Mondays over here, like how we position it is that it is one of the only regular instances where you engage with people IRL, and you often say it, right? It's the world's largest community that's IRL in crypto. And that's also how we've kind of sold it to our audience. And I think that really resonates with people because a lot of the time you're just kind of sitting behind a screen and doing Zoom calls. And so it's nice to know at least once a month you get out and meet people. And then because there's like a community that's sort of formed, you often meet people that you also know now. And that creates a very nice sort of ecosystem feeling. So I think that's one part of it. And the other is I think we've just been very regular and we've just churned out really like blue chip speakers in a very simple sort of way. Like for a lot of time, we just didn't have any money at all. We weren't funded. So we were actually sponsoring beers out of pocket. I mean, we were lucky because we had the venue. So we just like stopped at the local Aldi and bought a bunch of beers and chips and showed up at the venue and put them out there and said, all right, someone's speaking and then everyone can have a beer. And that's kind of it. And because we didn't let it stop us, but we didn't have a bit of financing and didn't have necessarily a lot of support in the background, just having that regularity, I think, established the community. And I think they really appreciated it as well. And then after a while, we also started putting like, hey, if you want to like chip in $5, we appreciate it. So we also had a little bit of like inflow from that, but largely it was, I think last year, I think Sygnum became our first proper sponsor. And then after we had a couple more come on board. And that's now, of course, we can offer breadsticks alongside the beer, which is nice.
Awesome. If I knew you had breadsticks, I'd come more often.
See, well, you're missing out, man.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, very cool stuff. Yeah, the pictures you posted on LinkedIn, they looked like a great group. Aaron, you got the next question?
Yeah, hey Aliya, thanks so much for the presentation. Really awesome stuff that you guys have built, and just wanted to get your thoughts on like counterparty risk, like decentralization. Like I just seems to me like when I hear stuff like digital asset bank or like Bitcoin bank, it almost feels like an oxymoron. And just curious what your guys' stance on that is. Just like, like an institutional bank for digital asset access to me is kind of like anti-crypto thesis. Just and like, do you view like I feel like you guys, I can't quote it exactly, but I'm sure you guys must have like at least 50 currencies offered, with a lot of those being stable coins. Any fear of like ETFs cannibalizing a lot of your business, or two questions there, but appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for the question. And that's, as you can imagine, one that we get quite often, right? Like sometimes when I walk into a conference, I'll be talking to someone and they'll have on their t-shirt, burn the banks, things like this. And I'm like, well, I'm from Sygnum Bank. Pleasure to meet you. But
yeah, I don't mean it with any sort of negative connotation.
No, I mean, honestly, like I came from a layer 1 protocol before I joined Sygnum. And for me as well, I was like, does this make sense? Like, what are we doing? Isn't this like against the crypto ethos altogether? And I think Sygnum's approach is just to be quite pragmatic. So we believe in this, future world that's going to be 100% decentralized, where ideally we don't even have jobs. We don't need the bank. That's definitely 50 years from now where potentially the world could go, and we would be supportive and happy for that journey. But we also understand that getting there is a process. And so while we talk about future finance, we also really say the future has heritage. And that means that it's a process to get to this like utopian world where everything is just DAO run and on chain and all the rest of it. So that's one, supporting that process. But two, the second is that I think fundamentally we've all grown up, and society in general in the last 500,000 years, whatever, has never really been comfortable taking care of its own money. Like it's just a lot of responsibility. And for example, like my crypto portfolio, it sits, obviously on chain somewhere, and I have like my private key on a piece of paper in my safe, and next to it like a set of instructions. So if I die, my husband knows how to actually access those funds and pay for my kids' future. But I'm not 100% sure of that. Like I do not believe that he would calmly be able to execute all the instructions there and be able to actually access all those funds. And also, what happens if the house burns down? Or it's an anxiety. Like nobody really wants to have that level of responsibility on their own operational security, right? And that is a reason why there will always be, I think, a role for a bank. People want to give that responsibility out over to somebody who is an expert at it. And in society, that role has been given to banks. And I think that's also just like a core belief we've seen, right? Like, because a lot of the crypto natives that we talk to, like overnight have become, millionaires, and like 20 millionaires and 100 millionaires. And suddenly this is just like life-changing wealth that they have access to. And it's all just sitting in some wallet somewhere. And that's not something that makes anyone feel safe or secure. And so, of course, there's a lot of different OPSEC type things you can do, but I think fundamentally there'll always be people who are like, nah, I don't want to take care of it. I want someone else to hold it for me. That's one. And then, sorry, two. And then the third point, and then there was a second question as well, but I'll come to that. The third point is when it comes to management of funds. So say a lot of crypto projects have raised a lot of capital in an ICO or in their own token or whatever. And management or running a treasury service, all of these things, you can kind of do it. Like if you have a MetaMask account or a safe account, and then, buy some BUIDL and then diversify like that, you can kind of do a lot of these things. But it's just much harder to streamline and operationalize with, governance of a company in there. Because suddenly it's not just like, me and my best friend with our little DAO that we like both chip in our holiday fund into or something like this, but actually $100 million that 15 people in a safe account now have like a 6 or 15 set up with, or something like this, which really becomes unwieldy quite quickly. And we've seen enough of these types of stories, right? Like the Quadriga guy who randomly disappeared, but now his coins are moving again, stories like this. And yeah, that's why having kind of a big boy in the room, or like a grown-up in the room who can help manage and set up governance around these types of processes, I think is still something that the industry really benefits from. And that's why a lot of these large projects work with us, even though, of course, they can choose to have their funds on a safe or something. There was a second question. I'm really sorry, I've forgotten it. Aaron, can you tell it to me again?
Cool. No, that's an awesome answer. I appreciate that. My second was just around kind of like ETFs and accessibility around those, and potentially that cannibalizing your business. But I think that's really well said. I think that you highlighted both in one answer, which was great. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. No, it was. I think the ETFs are also quite like a retail offering, right? Like, so people can go out and buy Bitcoin on their Digiro account or Robinhood account, or Robinhood, probably they could do crypto before, but essentially in their regular trading platform. We work primarily with institutionals, with private clients, with qualified investors, and with crypto projects and so on. So they're not really the target market of ETFs. So that, for us, it's just really good. It just means that there's more demand in the industry. People are getting more interested. So we're happy about it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. And Travis, you're up.
Hey, great to meet you, and awesome presentation there. I had a quick question on going back to the staking. So are you guys hosting your own validators, or is that kind of outsourced, or is there kind of a selection for the client to be able to choose who they want to stake with, or if they even want to stake. Is that something that's kind of like auto opted into with the staking while you have their assets, or is that something that the client is kind of picking and choosing to stake?
So definitely the client has to choose if they want to stake or not. I would say probably 40% of the ETH at Sygnum is staked. So similar probably to the broader chain as well. And when they stake, can they choose which counterparty that they're working with? Largely not, because I would say that each of the counterparties that we work with is actually just behind the scenes, right? Like, unless people specifically ask and want to get into the details, we wouldn't even tell them who the actual counterparties are. That, like, it's Sygnum as the counterparty to the client. The only thing that they know is that they're staking with Sygnum. And behind the scenes, of course, to simplify a lot of processes, it makes sense to again work with people that have that specific expertise. And so that's also why we see, it doesn't make sense to just build everything in-house, like from the ground up, and then have to maintain and innovate and make sure that we're staying actually on the curve for all of that software. And that's why, of course, it makes sense to work with providers as well in that regard. Yeah, but for a couple of different chains, I think we do it internally. I think ICP, for example, we run ourselves. Maybe one or two others, but I can check if that's of interest.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of look into that. And then are new chains kind of added based on client demand? If someone comes and says, "Hey, I want to," or that, okay, awesome.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, thanks, Travis. Look, this has been great, Aliya. Thanks again for taking the time. I'll take one last question. There's guys are doing so much more than you were the last time you were here. If you come again next year, what do you think you'll be talking about then that you're not talking about now?
Hard to say. I mean, the market evolves so quickly, right? Like, what are we doing in 6 months? That's the question.
That's fair. Have you guys been going very deep in kind of the decentralized AI?
Actually, not so much on decentralized AI. We've listed a couple of AI tokens now, I think, based on client demand. That's been something we've kind of had to do. And that was what we are kind of still exploring and pushing out and researching, I guess, is these sorts of decentralized pools, like how to actually incorporate them within institutional setups. I think 2-3 years ago we tried it didn't really work, but now the market's evolved quite a lot, and so it's a conversation worth having again. Yeah, so that's a little bit of that direction. And then also I think a product that's interesting to talk about here is last year we launched, or in October, November, so end of last year, we launched institutional multi-sig recovery, which I'm actually quite proud of as a product. So essentially, if you say, for example, have a safe account and then you have 3 signers or 5 signers or however you've chosen to set it up, you can actually have a fail-safe call with Sygnum. So that means that if you lose access to that safe, Sygnum can step in. We don't have access to your private keys, but we have a guardian module that you can choose to attach to your safe. And when you choose to set it up, it means that you can then basically trigger a recovery process with Sygnum, and then Sygnum steps in to support with the recovery of your safe account. Of course, this is set up by choice, and then there's a lot of thinking that's gone into how do we decouple this from custody, because it's clearly not custody. We don't want your private keys. We never want to look at the private keys or anything like this. But to have this admin module that can help swap out a key for a holder should there be a case where they've lost their key, and then we can identify that this is in fact a recovery event. So yeah, we launched this product last year and it's live. You can actually go check it out if you're interested to learn more about it.
Wow, that sounds super interesting. Thanks for finishing
I'm really
with that.
proud of it. Yeah.
And you said you were gonna? Are you gonna go to Paris Blockchain Week?
Yeah. Yep. I will be there. And
Okay,
are you gonna be there too?
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully we can get a drink.
Yeah, that sounds great. We're having a side event on the 7th night. If you're around, I'm happy to also. Give me 1 sec. Let me just chuck in the invite code in case any of you guys are around. It would be great to also have you at our decentralized drinks, they've called it, which I find to be a very uncreative name, but oops.
And if you happen to be in Fort Lauderdale, next Monday, Ivan just put up we're having a Crypto Mondays, Fort Lauderdale's having another meeting. Ivan, there's some big Bitcoin mining event going on in Miami? I mean, going on in Fort Lauderdale?
Yes, it's Mining Disrupt, world's largest Bitcoin mining conference. It's in Fort Lauderdale. It's their 7th annual, and then also a couple of days later, Emerge Americas in Miami Beach. So we're kind of doing a precursor opening social for both of those in Fort Lauderdale with both the Miami and the Fort Lauderdale chapter.
Oh, very cool. Oh, well, I'm sure you must have met Chris before. Chris is
Yes,
great.
of course,
Crypto
of
Monday
course.
Miami. And you look like you've been to the barber recently.
Not since Seed Denver. I'm almost due again. Thank you, but thank you.
Okay. Well, Aliya, thanks again. This was great. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
great
Leah.
weekend.
Thank you guys. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Lou,